Well, hello. We are back for another edition of That 90s Baseball Pod powered by Access Twins. And I am your host, Brandon Warren. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And as always, I'm joined by my companion, my compadre, Gregg Olson. You can find him on Twitter at GREGGOLSON30. Gregg, how are we doing today?
Good, Brandon. How are you? I'm excited about our upcoming guest.
We're having a pretty nice little sweet spot of guests here. We had Jim Poole last week, and before we took our little hiatus, we had Paul Molitor, and now we are welcoming one of Gregg's teammates for about a hot minute in Baltimore there, Mr. Dave Gallagher. Dave, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Great to have you on, Gally.
So, Gally, I don't know if I can call you Gally. I'm going to call you Gally until you tell
yes,
me
you
I can't. You were telling me before we had Gregg on the call that you're involved with a rookie, and now I can't even read my own writing here, rookie career program. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Been doing that for, believe it or not, 27 years. About a year after I was out of the game, I got a call from the Players Association, and they asked me if I would be a resource player. And they explained the program that every team sends who they think are their top 4 prospects to, at the time that we started, it was in Lansdowne, Virginia. They've since moved it to Miami. It's for 4 days. The criteria is that they think that player will make an impact in the coming year. So I think it's a great idea. I wish they could do it for everybody, but it's mentorship basically. And it doesn't have a whole lot to do with playing the game. It's more, Ole would completely understand what I'm about to say. It's rookie players learning how to deal with veteran players, dealing with umpires, financial planning. And as I've always admired the Players Association, it's not telling people how to live their life. You tend to want to tell somebody, don't do this and don't do that, but they're grown men. So you're basically throwing things out there. I tell a lot of true stories, and they get to think about it and decide in their own mind how they might react if something similar comes down the road. I would have loved it if I was a rookie before I first stepped into a major league locker. But it wasn't available back then.
Sounds like, and this is probably a good metaphor for you, teach a man to fish and he'll he'll catch his own food. But if people are watching the video, they can see some netting behind you. And you were talking about it off the air too. You've been doing a lot of fishing in South Jersey. What else keeps you busy these days? Because you were also telling Gregg that you did some broadcast stuff, but you're out of the game. And
I did. I experienced it. I loved it. I liked the color commentating more than the pregame and postgame. Excuse me. But I've about 2 or 3 years out of the game. At my home, I had built a batting cage separate from the house. I knew that I would do instruction and kind of, be able to earn a little extra money off to the side, and control my own schedule, be my own boss. I did that for years. And then I actually started Gallagher Baseball, did that for a long time, and just, tried to mentor a lot of people, not just the players, but young coaches that were getting into the game. Tried to do things, I won't say tried, we did things right. Like, I'm just talking about behavior, behavior, respecting the game, and demanding that of the coaches and the parents, to be quite honest with you. And then the last, I'd say about 7 months ago, perfect timing in my life, I sold my house in Central Jersey. I have 2 homes that are on one lot in Cape May. I do a lot of fishing. I can walk across the street at low tide. Most people fish high tide. I go low tide. I walk out to the farthest dune that's bare, and then I wade out, cast a couple lines in, walk them back, stick the poles in sand spike. And I like shark fishing. I love that feeling of, I've hooked into some that just broke my line, so I'm not reeling any big ones in. But I've been out there and hooked into a shark and can't even see my feet in the water. That's a really scary, but a thrilling kind of a feeling, Wow. We were throwing a Frisbee, me and my kids were throwing a Frisbee, and I had a line in the water, and I hook into a shark. I know he was feeding, and I'm reeling him in towards me, and I'm thinking, I don't think it's a good idea to bring them all the way in. And then he shook his head, busted my line, and the fin went underneath the water. And my advice to my kids was, don't move. That's probably not the best advice, but you can't run underwater and get back to the dune, you know? So it was just kind of like, hopefully he turns and goes to deeper water, which I think he did. But I do a lot of that. So this new job I have now, I'm a senior advisor for a center court, and there's 8 affiliates. There's sports development, 8 affiliates in the state of New Jersey. 5 of them have baseball, and I advise. I'm nobody's boss, right? And I don't have to get a phone call on a Thursday night saying we don't have a catcher for our 14U team on Saturday. Like, that's not going to be me anymore. I just basically, I can help mentor the parents, especially the kids that are looking to get into college, and help with the curriculum of what we're teaching. But I'm around a lot of professional people, and that's not always the case in this, I call it an industry because that's what it is. But the COO there's no pressure that he's putting on anybody. The owners of the company own a couple of sports development teams, actually professional team lacrosse, so they get it. And I'm proud to be a part of it. And it's good for this time in my life. It's not over stressing.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Oli, what you got?
No, I'm just listening. Really good stuff, Gally. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you're, still involved with the young players coming up, and even the rookie piece is really good. I mean, I just, going through it and starting on your career, 3rd pick in the 80 draft that you turned down.
It was kind of crazy. My story is one that probably would not happen today. I lost my father at 15 years old, a tragic death. It wasn't something anybody was looking that it was going to lead up to. It just happened. And the only reason I bring that up is because I was basically lost. I was lost. I was the youngest of 4 kids, and I was looking for fun. I had no structure. I'm looking for whatever's fun I'm going to do. I had no intentions of going to play in college. I was going to hang out at the beach with a couple of my friends that drove cars that were a little bit older than me. And to kind of shorten up the story, my girlfriend, who is now my wife, her father was the one that talked me into just going locally to a junior college around the corner. And I went, and back then, Oli, I don't know if you remember, they used to have a January and a June draft. And then shortly after that, they dropped the January draft. But I went and played in the fall at the Mercer County Community College, which is right in my hometown. And I got picked in the first round in January. It was the 3rd pick overall, and really didn't even know I was going to get drafted. That's what I mean. That would never happen today. I had a few people talking to me, asking me questions, and they picked me. And I had a keg party at my sister's house, which is where I was living. I had all my friends over. I said, I'm thinking I'm going to get a nice signing bonus. And about 2 or 3 days later, it was the Oakland A's who had drafted me. And a gentleman calls me and he said, congratulations, we picked you. And then he broke my heart. He said, we're trying to sell the organization. There's a group out of Colorado that's interested. So we're not really signing anybody. And he said, legally, we have to make you an offer. And the minimum that we're allowed to offer is $500. And I about choked when he said that. I was thinking that's not even going to cover my keg party. I was like, no. And he said, if, I guess the rules were, they had rights to me until 2 weeks before the June draft. And if they didn't sign me, I become a free agent again. I played in this JUCO All-Star game, and I had like a dream day, 6 for 7. I did everything right. And the backstop was lined with scouts from every team. And afterwards, a scout came up to me and said, did you sign? Are you going to sign with Oakland? And I said, I haven't heard from him. He said, if you haven't heard from him, you're a free agent. They lost rights to you. Don't worry about it. He said, I think Cleveland's going to draft you. And sure enough, Cleveland then picked me in the first round. And that's kind of what kicked off my career, really. Yeah.
Yeah, Kirby Puckett went in the January draft in '82, so it didn't last much longer than that. Do you know who was taken second overall in that June phase? That he's still around the game, MLB Network.
Really? You're
Harold
about to tell me.
Reynolds. Harold Reynolds.
You're kidding.
Yeah. So it was actually not a lot of noise in that first round besides you, Reynolds. It was pretty quiet. Mike Mason, left-handed pitcher, played for a while, and Ron Romanek, Jeff Dedman. Not a lot of guys who hung around for a while. So it was you and Harold Reynolds. So that was pretty neat. And actually, yeah, it only took my steam there. I was going to ask about going twice in the span of 6 months. That's probably something that first round in twice in the span of 6 months. You can say that, and very few others.
Well, I think that's pretty cool. And I do tell people that as much as I possibly can. As much as I possibly can. I remember the guy from Oakland. His name was Norm Koselke, and he said he was Charlie Finley's nephew. He's the person who called me. Yeah, that's my age there, right? But he said to me, we look at you as a Bobby Mercer type, which, come on, like I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But they had met my older brother at a game. My older brother was always like, he's 6'3", and he was so naturally strong. He's a bull. And I think they always projected me to look like him eventually. I never did. I stopped at 6 foot, never had his strength. But I always tease him and say, I probably should give you something of what I've made, But yeah, I being compared, I think they always viewed me as a guy that might hit 15 to 20 home runs. And I never really became that guy. But I love the comparison. That was pretty good for me.
For sure. I have to ask you though, so you go through all that time coming up in the Cleveland system, and you only get, it's kind of funny, you're drinking, I think, a cup of coffee now. You get you get 15 games with them. Yeah, and that's it. And then by that time that you get to the big leagues next, you're no longer in the organization. But you came up with the names I kept seeing were Rich Thompson, Mike Jeffcoat, kind of the guys that were in that rung of the ladder with you. Was it strange to come up and then not really make your first statement with the team that drafted you? You were there for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, you were in Maine for 3 years, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking for me, but in this day and age, I feel like, and I hope this makes some sense, I feel like nobody ever wants to take responsibility. It's always just too easy to point the finger at somebody else for a reason. Mm-hmm. Things happen. This one's pointed directly at me. They gave me every opportunity. And look, the bottom line is I can look in the mirror and look at myself and look back at my career and say, I was on the field with so many players who were much more talented. But if it wasn't that for me, if I didn't see that, I don't know if I would have pushed myself and worked as hard, which I had to do. Mm-hmm. I had to make up for huge gaps in talent on every phase of the game. So we were talking a little earlier, Brandon, before we went on the air here, and I was explaining that they gave me an opportunity. Brett Butler, I think he got hit by a pitch and broke his hand or his thumb, and I got called up. They gave me an opportunity to start, and I failed miserably. And I can honestly say, from day one, I was playing not to fail. I was playing not to fail. I remember saying to myself, if I just hit a ground out to short, that's okay. I see people do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I was 4 for 36. By the way, that's on my baseball card.
I see it on my screen right here. I have it on my screen.
I can't get it off of there. That's a 111 batting average. That's how well I know that. And then this is what was heartbreaking, is they traded me after they sent me down. And that I kind of I was miffed. They spent so much time developing me. Wouldn't they understand that sometimes you don't succeed your first time up? Mm-hmm. Some of the best players in the game, Willie Mays, I know, was like that. Yep. Mike Trout was like that, where he come up and they struggled. And then it's experience. How you respond to that failure will make or break you as a competitive athlete. But they traded me to Seattle, and I actually walked away from the game. I notified Seattle that I was giving myself until August 15th to make it to the big leagues. And it wasn't a threat. It was, that's the date I'm giving myself. It doesn't happen, I'm done. I'm going to retire from baseball and I'm going to move on with my life. And a lot of people said, well, why didn't you just finish out the minor league seasons 2 weeks longer? I didn't want to be a September call-up. I know that sounds weird, but 3 outfielders in the organization had been called up from AAA during the year while I was there. That makes me 4th in line.
Right.
So I wanted the pressure on myself to make it and earn it, or go home and let's get on with your life. And I was out of the game, and I got signed by the White Sox to condense this. They brought me to spring training as a non-roster player. And if you guys remember Jim Fregosi, he was the manager of the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And on day 1, I walked into his office and I said, can you do me a favor? Bring me to every single game that you guys have. As Ole knows, veteran players don't like to make trips. They take some extra BP or a pitcher throw aside and go golf. I said, I'll make every trip, even if you don't use me in the game. This is my last shot. And his response was, I can't promise you that. Everybody would want that. To which I said, but I'm the only one asking. And he smiled and he said, I will promise you that I'll pay attention to everything you do. And I had the best spring of my life. Almost made the team. He called me in with 3 days left and said, I need you to go to AAA. We're trying to trade Gary Reedus, a great guy. And they were trying to get some value out of Gary. They never did trade him. So I went down for about a month and I got called up and then stuck around for a good part of 9 years.
Well, I can see why you got called up, because you went down there and hit 336 in the span of about a month. So I think you kind of answered my next question. I feel like I'm stepping on Ole here a little bit, but when you play like that and you're playing that nervous or whatever you want to call it, that last day when you're sent down, you're like, yep, I'm never going back up again. This is it. I won't get a chance. I always wonder about that mentality, because you have to play the game with the idea that you will be back. But in the back of your mind, I have to be thinking like, oh, well, this might be it. And I think you kind of answered that already, but am I getting kind of close there?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine how frustrating the rest of my life would have been?
Yeah.
If I never worked my way back?
Mm-hmm.
I might have even resented the game because, and that would be a shame, because I love the game to this day. Not everybody does. Ole knows that there are players that when they're done, or they'll come back and give it a shot to manage in the minor leagues and they hate it and they just disappear. I love the game. I'm not going to say that I love everything about today's game, and certainly don't want to sound like that old guy that, you know, everything was better during our time. It certainly was not. But there are certain parts. I don't think I'm a major leaguer in today's game. I just, the little things that I had to do in defending, instead of looking at it like a card to tell me where to stand.
Yep.
I wanted information. I wanted to know who was pitching. Did they have good command? I could see how the catcher was setting up the hitter. I know the count. I know if the hitter's been struggling, maybe his bat's dragging. There was so much information I could use that benefited me. And it helped me have an edge, even over your own teammates, to try to get in the starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that has disappeared. You can't break up a double play. I needed to break up a double play. I couldn't peel off on a play at the plate. There's 2 of my baseball cards that have me trying to run over the catcher. 2 of them from 1 year. Baseball card is the picture. Both times the catcher held on to the ball, but when you're coming back to the dugout, your team is meeting you on the top step. They appreciate the effort. None of that even appears in a game today. And I know, I guess it's probably because salaries are so high, you just can't have a guy getting hurt. I understand it. But I don't know if I ever break through. Those were some ingredients that I needed, again, to make up some of those gaps.
Yeah, I think Buster Posey kind of ended that with what.
Yeah.
And then before I give it back to Ole, I got to just give you credit. You finished 5th at Rookie of the Year the next year. I mean, that is really impressive that you go from being out of the game or mentally potentially out of the game to 5th and Rookie of the Year next year. You deserve a lot of credit for that.
Appreciate that. I have a story for everything. So I'll tell you a quick one here, that about a month into the season, I was hitting over 300. I'm with the White Sox. Fregosi was my manager, who I really liked. I had him twice. I had him my last year with the Phillies too.
Yep.
The hitting coach comes up to me one day. We're hitting early. I think we were in California in a dusty batting cage outside of right field at the time. And we sat down before I even jumped in the cage. And he said, I'm going to tell you something. but if you tell anybody that I said this, I'm going to call you a liar. He said, I could get fired over this. He said, they don't think you can do it. And he wasn't smiling. And think about me, my mindset. I'm hitting over 300. I finally have made it all these years in the minor leagues. And yet he's telling me it's not good enough. Right. That in the meetings, they're looking for somebody else. They don't think you can sustain this. I know I love the guy because he told me. I think he knew I could handle it mentally. And he also knew that it'll be incentive for me to have to continue to work hard, which was never a problem for me. And I ended up hitting over 300. So I sustained it. I didn't give them the opportunity to send me out. And an enormous amount of pressure to live with when you're trying to raise your family like this, but it is what it is. Without it, I don't know if I could have made it. Oli, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
To see if you remember this. So Oli knows that I'm a little bit of a clown. That was another part of who I had to be as a player. I had to make people laugh to make up for that gap again. So the first day I'm in Baltimore and I come in and that's never a comfortable thing. You don't know everybody. And I'm at my locker. I look over and you were doing a New York Times crossword with Jeff Ballard.
Yeah.
And I remember this. I ended up going to the men's room, but on my way back, I looked over your shoulder and I looked at words that you didn't have. And one of them was, I want to say it was like an Italian author of, turn of the century or something like that. And I counted the letters and I went back to my locker and I said, hey, are you guys doing the Times crossword? And both of you looked up and you were serious about it. So was Jeff, like serious about getting that thing done. And I said, did you get the Italian author yet? And both of you said, no. Did you get it? And I said, yeah, it's Baldini. And I can't remember if you had the pen or he did, but you wrote it in and it was pen. It wasn't pencil.
Oh yeah, we never did pencil.
Yes. And then you both realized simultaneously that none of the other words were fitting, up or down. And you both were so pissed at me. He looked at me and said, are you kidding me? And that was like your first impression of this new guy is he messed with us on a crossword puzzle. I never forgot that.
Yeah. But the better part was it took us about 15 minutes to go on.
Yes. Oh, believe me, I'm sitting over there and I'm thinking,
you know what? I know this is this.
Yeah.
But and then it's like, and then a couple more minutes go by and then Ballard, going to Stanford, he's like, pretty sure this is. And it was just like looking over at you going, all right.
Yeah.
Just wadded it up and threw it away. And it's like, we're done.
You did. And you were both mad at me. And I think what's funniest about that is you're right. Ballard being a Stanford guy just took an answer from a guy that went to a local JUCO. But there is another one that I know you're going to remember. So the one year I go there in Baltimore in 90, it gets to the off season. And Cal calls me and says, hey, Gallagher, you want to come over? Like we get together a couple times a week and, we play street hockey. And I went, street hockey? And I said, I don't have a stick. And he goes, I got everything here. And I felt like, man, they play street hockey? So I go and Cal gives me a stick. He gives me tape to tape it up. He says, oh, you can't wear those shoes. They have black soles because he had that gigantic NBA sized basketball court. And he had shoes in every size. He said, go get a pair. It's got white soles. But you were playing goalie. And I remember thinking like, man, Oli's got a lot of courage here because they're firing that ball, that street hockey ball at you. And one day you just got smoked. You took it off the chest to save it from going in the net, but it had to hurt. And you just dropped everything and said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. But that people need to know. That's Cal and Billy. How competitive were they?
Oh,
they were crazy.
It was
basketball, everything.
Before he built his gym, so we, going through it and you played with both those guys. Before they built the gym, we were at Memorial Stadium. And so our workouts were down at Memorial Stadium. Well, we would do our lift and then play the street hockey game in the visitors clubhouse, which is, it's a brand of hockey that you can never imagine because you got guys getting pushed into lockers. You got just no room for anybody. And you've got 8 major league players in this little room, slamming each other, and it was nasty, and it was just, that was Cal, that was Billy, everything was a game. Finally, Cal builds its gym, so now we can play street hockey in the gym or basketball. And only good thing was, everybody knew their place, and nobody was going after people on layups. It was contained, but it was still so competitive. I forgot about street hockey. Golly. Yeah,
I remember thinking when I hung up the phone, I thought, street hockey. I felt like, man, I feel like I'm 15 again, but I wonder, like, would they even allow that in today's contracts? They would never allow that kind of thing that we were doing.
Well, we did. I didn't talk about it with Billy, but we went like 91, I think, went skiing with all the wives and the Ripken brothers and that. And, so we're snowmobiling because we couldn't ski. And probably that week, Carney Lansford drives his snowmobile into a barbed wire fence, and he was out for the year.
Wow.
All of a sudden, that would be the last snowmobiling that Major League Baseball will do legally without losing their contract. It was just, the Ripken brothers were, bar none, any game that we could play in a clubhouse, tape ball. Yeah. It was nuts.
Yeah, that's a side that people don't get to see. But I look how vivid those memories are for me, which shows you what was really important for me. The game itself, and you might have a completely different experience being who you are and the success that you had. But the game for me, and I'm saying that word purposely, game, it changed when I signed professionally. It was still a game between the lines that I enjoyed, kind of like when I was a high school player, being part of a state championship team in high school. Like, man, these are guys I hang out with. But it became definitely a different definition as a professional for me, because it took on an enormous amount of pressure because this was how I was raising my family. And, as you know, from the pitching side, for a hitter, you go 3 or 4 games in a row without a hit, and I was a starter for about 4 or 5 years, and then I was a role player for the rest of my career. And 3 or 4 games without a hit, you might start reading about yourself in the local paper, which I did, the candidates to be sent down when so-and-so gets called up. And I'd see my name in there, and then I'm expected to go. I'm starting in center field that night. Like, how the hell am I going to perform when I got this over my head? And I would never discuss that with my wife, because number one, she never liked the game of baseball, doesn't understand the rules, which worked for me because I could come home and separate. But I would never have that conversation because I thought, why would I want her to feel the same stress that I'm feeling? But I don't know if you had that same experience. I always loved the game between the lines, but outside the lines was a complete different ballgame for me.
Well, you're mentoring these young rookies coming in. I hope you're telling them not to read the papers or stay off Twitter and everything else, because it's just, it doubles the pressure when you start seeing it outside of the game. You already know what you got. You already know that you haven't gotten a hit. I already know that I've blown two games in a row. I already know that. I have all this information. But then when you start, reading stuff outside the lines, it almost doubles everything. It really does. And it was, my rookie year was kind of one of those where just I was in a cloud, and that's what it was. And I got dinged up the next year a little bit, and it still was kind of the same thing. But once I started reading or hearing a little bit, and the blown save really started to become a prevalent stat, it became a conscious thought of, it still is fine if I come in with a run lead and we leave and we're tied. The game's not over with, the game's still on. Yeah, we could have won right now, but it's, I kept it to this. And then all of a sudden the blown save comes in and becomes, well, that's not acceptable either.
Right.
And so, you start pressuring yourself a little bit, and the game's, you're right. Once you get into that certain level, and it becomes a stress of not being there, not staying there, going down, it becomes really stressful on a day-to-day basis.
And I remember you. I know I didn't spend a lot of time with you as a teammate, but I remember you in your career, what I can visualize in my head, similar to me. You can correct me if I'm wrong, as far as how you handled frustration or failure. Like for me, I tried not to show it. I would push it in, push it down. And I don't know if that's the healthiest thing to do, because there's only so much that I could push down and act as if it's not happening and hide from the camera, hide from my teammates, hide from everybody. It's probably healthier to explode once in a while and get it out. And I kind of picture you as a guy that you could see it on your face. If you knew Ole, you could see, oh, he's not happy. But I don't remember you as a guy that would slam stuff. And I think it's an interesting topic for athletes in general of all sports, especially like the best thing we can do right now is what we're doing, talking about what we experience so that they can live it through us and decide maybe how to handle it better. That's always been a difficult topic for me is, you want kids to be able to express how they feel and not hold it in. But being involved in amateur baseball for so long now, 20 some years, the biggest thing that's jumping out for me is the older kids, especially the high school age kids, they're getting migraine headaches more than I've ever seen. And I think it's something, I think it has to do with the social media and rankings and the pressure of I'm not hearing from a school. It's parents, I think, feel that pressure because their kids have become investments. They spend a lot of money in training and it's an indirect pressure that's going back to the kids, and how did you handle, I'm doing the interviewing, right? But how did you handle failure? Like, what's your best advice to kids and all?
Honestly, when, going through it and analyzing and talking to people, and I spent a year, the Orioles gave me somebody to talk to on the side just because I started putting limitations, fences, in situations. I'd walk in and I was unsuccessful in Toronto on day games with Dale Ford umpiring. And then I'd come walking in and automatically was like, I'm screwed, And so I spent some time talking to a guy just trying to get that system out of my head, however it got started. But I'm listening to what you're saying, and I never exploded in public. I would go into the bat room and mistakenly hit against the brick wall and take a wooden bat and sting the crap out of my hands. But I would take it out there. And I found ways to take it out and never, do it in the clubhouse where, I had a teammate that broke every light in the training room.
Yeah.
I was like, I understand you're upset, but now nobody can go in there,
Right.
And I saw some epic snaps when I was with the Dodgers and it was Kevin Brown. It was like, wow, that was a really good one. And I was fine. I was fine with it. I wasn't going to do it in the dugout. I wasn't going to throw the Gatorade cooler because I blew a save, because nobody needs to see it. So what, I'm sitting there thinking, listening to the, with the kids, I had, my issues were, I had such a fear of failure that it cycled up and drove me so hard never to lose the game that, it was painful when I lost. I knew the repercussions of what I was going to deal with for 24 or 48 hours was going to be utter misery. Right. So that was my propelling factor, was that if I lose, I'm going to be so miserable that it's not worth. And I ended up finding ways to dial up things that I can't explain. But what you talked about with the kids, I can't imagine the rankings, the pressure that is going on with these high school kids that have invested all this time and money. Their parents have, the pressure that they're dealing with to function inside the lines.
The conversations, Ole, in the dugout are, and I don't blame the kids, I blame us, meaning the adults, right? That that we're the ones that are supposed to be setting up an atmosphere that's healthy for them. I mean, it wouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to watch a player, an amateur player on a field, and know whether you should probably watch him some more just by his movements, right? You've seen it your whole professional life, what it looks like. It doesn't take much. But the kids and the parents are raised in an atmosphere where it's not that. They don't even realize that it's not, in their mind, it's not that. It's more about, if I go to certain showcases and certain tournaments and I get ranked, if I don't get ranked, I have no chance. And that's how they're being marketed to. It's really sad, because I don't remember ever feeling like that. And yet I played in the big leagues. So somehow I got discovered, right? I told you my story. I didn't go to one showcase. I didn't play travel. They didn't have it.
We didn't have travel ball. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, there's a lot of good to it. I don't want to say it's all bad, but there's certain things that we have to fix for these kids. It's causing way too much stress that I see, you know?
I mean, the game's not fun. These kids can't be having fun. And then, you know, now I'm looking at Brandon going, Brandon.
It doesn't create baseball players. It creates robots.
I know, but I'm just going, you know, I know how you are, and you have this Gally, he has this full page of notes. Right. And it's like right now he's just crossing stuff off going.
No, we're good. I'd rather have organic conversation, because I like to adapt. Like we're talking about with players here. If you create robots, then it's not a fun game. It's just they're going through the motions.
This is a great conversation.
It really is.
I'm just sitting there going, if they're not having the time of their lives playing high school, or when they get to college, it was the same thing with me. It was about the camaraderie and the competition and whatever happened after this, great. Now I'm sitting there looking at it going, they're so concerned with stat line. You're seeing that in travel ball where nobody lays down a bunt, nobody hits a ground ball to second base with a runner on second. Nobody does the little things because they don't help the stat line.
Oli, would you believe that the advice to kids at a showcase is, when they're throwing a ball in from the outfield, don't worry about hitting the cutoff man. Throw it as hard as you can. They're getting a reading on the velocity coming out of your hand. Now, I spent years telling our players that as you get older, pitchers get better, defense gets better. You have to keep a double play in order, because the pitcher can get a ground ball and the infielders can turn a double play. You sailing it over the cutoff man, you're not going to be out there unless you can hit so many bombs that they'll look past it. So my point is this: that's how they're being raised. It's not their fault.
Oh, I don't blame them. I really don't. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm just saying, we somehow have the only sport where the trend traveled up. Right. We're watching Major League Baseball. Guys don't hit cutoff mans. Guys don't hit ball the other way. Our trend traveled up, and I don't think all these guys that are playing in the big leagues now did all this in travel ball, but it sure looks like they did, and they have never gotten corrected. It's never gotten changed. And the only time it switches back into normal baseball mode is when the playoffs, because wow, we need to win.
You got to win a game. Yeah.
I don't care if I'm over 4 and I hit 2 ground balls to second base with a runner on second, and he comes in to score. I had a good day in the playoffs. Right. But in the regular season, I ain't doing that. I got to swing away and pop up and leave him at second base.
I think with the kids too, you have to emphasize play baseball. This sounds like a job. You know, who's going to have fun going? I mean, you can play 100 games in a year as a kid, but you're not playing. It's a job. If you need to learn how to play the game and learn the ins and outs of it, and then you start doing the things like, if you hit the cutoff man, then you can see how hard you can throw. And how hard you can throw should come up when a guy's trying to go first to third on you from right field. You know what I mean? Like that's where you should show how hard you can throw. It doesn't matter if you're reeling in a routine up the middle diamond cutter 20 hopper up the middle. It just, to me, let the game teach you when you learn the game, and they're just not doing that.
No, if these kids actually sit there and think that we don't recognize a good arm from the outfield, and I need a radar gun. No, not at all. I can watch a team play catch and go, nope, they got no chance tonight.
Right.
I don't want to take away from this if there's more meat on the bone, but at the same time too, I do want to ask about.
I want to get to Galley's. Galley was a clubhouse guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a clubhouse guy. I loved the interactions. Give me your favorite baseball story, and then I'll let Brandon start getting into his notes before he runs out of time.
Yeah, we're gonna run out of time. You're pretty fast.
All right, I'll give you a quick one because you know the guy. He's since passed away. Rest in peace, Jeff McKnight. You remember Jeff?
Yeah, I didn't realize he passed.
Oh yeah, a while ago, Ole.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's starting to happen a lot. But anyway, so he comes over to the Mets, and I'm with the Mets, and he comes in the clubhouse, and it's before we even go on the field, take batting practice, pregame. So I purposely we're in was it it was the Mets. Where the heck were we at? I can't remember where we were at. Minnesota, I believe. If that makes any sense, because I don't know. If anyway, wherever we were at, I walk and I go past him and I go to a player next to him and another player on the other side of him. And I said, "Are you guys going on the whale watch tomorrow?" I'm not looking at McKnight. Purposely, I'm not looking at him. But I already told the other guys, and they said, "Yeah, what time?" I said, "We're meeting down in the lobby at 5 a.m." And I said, they give you ponchos, the whales splash water over the side of the boat. It's going to be awesome. Then we'll grab breakfast and we'll come back and we could get some sleep before we go to the ballpark. And then almost last second, I turned to Jeff and I said, "Oh, did you want to go on the whale watch?" And he wants to belong with the team. So he says, yeah, definitely. I said, "All right, we're meeting down in the lobby at 5 a.m. He goes, "I'll be there." So when we got back to the hotel, I asked who's working through the night, who's working. And the girl happened to say, "Yeah, I'm here all night. I'm here in the morning." And I said, "Do me a favor. You got to let me know tomorrow if there's a guy sitting in the lobby at quarter to 5. And then I told the players, anyone that was near him, put a lock on your phone, because that's the first thing he's going to do when he finds out he's been had. He's going to try to wake us up with our phones, And when we got to the ballpark the next day, he was waiting for me to ask. And I said, "Did you go down there?" And he goes, "No, but I asked that girl." He was there. It was just, to me, it was awesome. I like doing that. I like to have my fun. Of course, when a game started, I couldn't afford not to pay attention and give it everything I had. But that was important for me to enjoy being in the locker room, like you said, the camaraderie.
You had to have been in San Francisco. I mean, there are no whales in Minnesota.
I'm in Minnesota. I can tell you there are no.
There are no whales.
It might have been Seattle.
With the Mets, it had to be San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm thinking it had to be the Mets. And I was thinking Seattle, but why would the Mets be playing? I don't think they played interdivision.
We didn't have interleague until 94.
97.
Yeah.
Was it 97?
Yeah, 97.
I've got the wild card then in 95.
Yeah, 94 and 95. Yeah, they're supposed to have the wild card in 94. And
yeah. Dude, it had to have been San Francisco.
It must have been. Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? I came down in Oakland one morning and Mickey Weston was sitting down there. I was going golfing at 6.
Yeah.
And I come down and Mickey Weston's sitting in the lobby and he was waiting on somebody to go whale watching. And I just kind of it was my best game face. I was just like, "Oh man, that's awesome. I went on that last year, dude." And I might have kept him there another 30 minutes by my just selling the whale watching story.
I thought the joke was watching whales in Minnesota, so I just let it go. See, I kept my game face on while you were telling the story, because if people were watching the YouTube video, I kept my face on. So a whale watch in Minnesota, that should already tip off this guy.
Yeah,
I thought that was the joke.
Standard rookie West Coast trip,
right?
Whale watching at 5 a.m. It's just like.
I like the fact that I threw in that you get a free poncho with the trip. like that's a difference maker.
How quickly do you have to jump off this call, because we don't want to keep you too long?
Yeah, I could go right to 5 up.
5 up? Okay.
We got 10 minutes.
We got another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about finally getting your chance in Chicago. You did say you had to go down for a while, but that outfield too, remarkably productive. Dan Pasco had a pretty nice season. Ivan Calderon, You said Gary Regis didn't get traded. He had a pretty nice year. Even Darryl Boston popped 15 homers. And then Harold Baines, who was the DH, but an outfielder by trade. I mean, almost all of your guys' production outside of Carlton Fisk came from outfielders. What was it like to be part of that group and to finally get your shot a year later after feeling like it could be over for you?
Yeah, Harold basically, he never played the outfield at that point. He was DH,
right,
and I think Ole knows him too. That what a great guy.
Oh man,
one of my favorite guys of all time as a teammate. Sammy was just coming up, and believe it or not, this tells you about my career. Sammy had a great arm, but never hit the cutoff man early on, and he'd fire a seed to try to get a guy going from first to third. And he'd be in the corner at right field and short hop the third baseman and bounce up into the stands and everybody move up. And in my mind, I'm thinking, they're going to send him down. And that's what happened is like he kept going up and down. And it helped me stay. It basically helped me stay just by being fundamentally sound.
Yep.
And another funny one, because the guy had a long, great career, and another really nice guy, Lance Johnson.
Yep.
In spring training, I remember him being in the outfield and breaking in a brand new glove, but it was in the games. And a couple balls popped out of his glove. And I remember thinking, how does he not know to break that in during batting practice? But I hate to say it, but I'm not going to tell him.
He's 24 at this point.
Yeah, if he makes it, I'm probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
And I just like, isn't that weird? That's the true life of a guy that was in my position is like, I can't even be a good teammate to some guys because I need to make this team.
Well, Cole DeVries.
Somebody had to tell him.
Yeah. So my guy pitched in the minor leagues for the Twins and then in the big leagues for a minute. But he said it's so hard in the minors because you have teammates, but they're also kind of your adversaries. You know, the other starting pitchers are all battling you for a call-up. And it's so strange. Like, they're like, you don't want to win and make it to the playoffs because you don't get paid for those games. And you don't want to really be close to your teammates because they're competition. That early part of guys' careers sounds like just kind of like a mental block of like, that's not how we play the game.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
So picture this. The guy, this is a true story, and I'll leave the names out. It's not a bad thing. The hitter is a guy that needs RBIs. Right? He's a slug. He doesn't run well, but he has to hit home runs and drive in runs. Runner on third, and the pitch is in the dirt, and it goes almost to the backstop. He immediately holds his hand up to hold the runner at third. Why? Because the next pitch, he hit a sac fly. He got an RBI out of that. He did not want that guy to score because that would have just been an 0 for 1 and a fly out. And I remember, like, I caught things like that in my mind, and I don't even blame the hitter. It's just so strange. But I will say this. I learned the hard way that, you know, rooting against your own teammates is such a negative energy that I was doing it. I was like the other outfielders, you know, hope he makes, I'm talking about A, double A. And then I had to change. It was a negative energy and it was draining me.
Yeah.
And when I finally changed, nobody told me to do it. I just figured it out. When I legitimately pulled for my teammates, every one of them, and the handshake was real, I started to play my best baseball. And so there's something to that.
Good stuff. Yeah. Very good.
There's no question about it. You played for some really interesting managers too. You said Jim Fregosi twice, Jeff Torborg twice, Bobby Cox, Frank Robinson. I mean, what was your relationship like with those guys?
I take pride in the fact, and somebody brought this up to me, that Jim had me in Chicago and then had me sign or was part of it in Philadelphia years later.
He had a choice at that point.
Yeah. Jeff Torborg had me in Chicago. Then when he became the manager of the Mets, he got me. And Marcel Latchman was a pitching coach for the Angels. And then when he was the manager, he got me. That's three guys. It made me feel like, look, they know what my role is on a successful team, on a talented team.
Yeah.
And they saw a place for me. And that made me feel pretty good about just who I was as a person and behavior as a professional kind of thing. So yeah, I take pride in that.
Wow.
No, I mean, dude, you were a great clubhouse guy. You did your job. You played hard. We knew what we had when you were out there. So it was a comfort level of like, he's a professional. He's not gonna screw around. He's not gonna screw up. He's gonna get the job done. And yeah, it was. How long were you with us in '90? What?
It wasn't long. I think I got there in August. And it was off the heels of me pushing back on the White Sox rookie pay for performance contract that Jerry Reinsdorf was offering, and it became public. I actually, through the Players Association, I filed a grievance, and we went to war over this thing. And I knew when I did that, I'm gone. So the day that they put me on waivers, I was batting 280 exactly. I was actually having a good solid year. And they put me on waivers, and the Orioles picked me up. And I was thinking I might get blackballed from the game. I sat with Roland Heeman, Ole, and I asked him point blank, one-on-one in his office, am I getting blackballed from the game? And I'm looking at his eyes. I'm trying to read, like, where, is he going to just give me? He was an honest man.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I was unaware, and I believe him. I was unaware of what you're saying and the reasons for it. No, you're not going to be blackballed from the game. And that was a relief for me, because I thought I might be. I thought I might be out. And then they ended up right around that time, Cleveland started offering contracts, but the difference was they guaranteed them, because what Jerry Reinsdorf was offering was not guaranteed, and it had 2 years that would kick in if you didn't get enough service time in. Think about that. So if you're on a bad team and it's a 4-year deal, non-guaranteed, but 2 more years can be kicked in if you don't have enough service time, it's an incentive for them to send you down. Yeah. So I fought it tooth and nail. And at one point, Michael Weiner was an attorney for the association back then. And he called all the rookies in a hotel room and said, if he fights this alone, it's not going to be good. Are any of you willing? Every rookie raised their hand. And when it came to really going to war on this, every other one backed out. I think their agents got to him and said, let him fight it. And if he wins, you all benefit. If he loses, you don't get hurt. I don't blame him. It is what it is, but I just did it.
Well, before we let you go, can I ask you about being there? Right before you left Chicago, you were there for the Steve Lyons pulling his pants down incident in 1990 in Detroit. I got to ask you about that. I mean, what do you remember?
Yeah, I remember him he did a head first slide. He was always a max effort guy. I had a lot of fun with him. He's a fun guy. I really did. I had a lot of fun with him. We did a lot of laughing. And he went head first, hit the base, went past it, stood up, and he had sliding shorts on underneath, and he just ripped his pants down to get the dirt out. I think we've all done that to get it out of your belt, but I don't remember ever dropping him down to my knees. So yeah, it was on the camera caught it. It was shown. It still gets shown on blooper films to this day. But yeah, he was a high effort guy, a good man.
Yes, in Detroit. So let's see. Just pulling up the attendance. 14,770 people saw his sliding shorts that night, and I'm sure they were.
That's a good crowd in Detroit.
No worse for it.
That is. You're right.
Well,
we gotta let him go.
Thanks so much for the time, Dave. I'm sorry if I monopolized the conversation, but I had a great time. I hope you did too.
No, listen, guys. I wish I didn't have to hop off. But I hope that you'll invite me back on. I really enjoyed this.
Definitely. I did too. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get you back on. Great seeing you, brother.
Take care, Ollie. Good talking to you.
He's Dave Gallagher and Gregg Olson. I'm Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you so much for checking out that 90s baseball pod powered by Access Twins, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.